Hi everyone, my name is Swaleh Zaidi, and I'm excited to present to you my summer research project, which is dual stage and lightweight patient chart summarization for emergency physicians on edge IoT devices. Emergency departments are filled with tons of information, and it can become overwhelming for clinicians, and they face heavy documentation burden and click fatigue. Some studies show that they spend more time reading EMRs than they do face-to-face with a patient. And so this image below shows the system we developed to help reduce or alleviate some of the stress that comes with this. So the research question wasn't whether or not the LLMs can summarize text. They've already shown incredible potential for that. But the question is whether LLMs can summarize EMR data in a way that is high quality enough to be useful to clinicians. So this was the process that we went through to summarize the EMR data. We first obtained two different sets of data. We then used LLM as a judge, which is explained in more detail later on. And then we analyzed the ratings based on the criteria from LLM as a judge to find the best prompt and the best LLM. So this is an overview of our technical work. We had two Jetson Orin Nanos, so these were two microcomputers. One was used for retrieving all the relevant information inside of the EMRs, and then one was used for summarizing that information. We had two different data sets that we used, had two different types of summaries that we produced, and used 6 LLMs for full trials, and 7 different prompting techniques were tested during our project. So this is the process that our pipeline went through. We had the full EMRs being fed into the system, and it produced a critical summary from the whole thing and a context-based summary with 6 key points from the patient's complaint. And so this is a simulated example of one of the summaries that would be generated by our LLMs. As I mentioned previously, we used LLM as a judge to evaluate the quality of the outputs. And so the way the LLM as a judge works is that you use an LLM to judge whether or not an output summary meets the criteria required from it. And so we used a lot larger LLM, and we evaluated the metrics of factual accuracy, completeness, and clarity to ensure that nothing was made up between the process of the health record itself and then summarizing that health record. And so one key question that I got asked very frequently while doing this research is why not use a laptop? So there's a few key reasons behind this. One of them is that the Jetson Orin Nano, the microcomputer, is designed to handle AI workloads efficiently. It costs $380, which is a lot less than a computer which could do the same thing that the Jetson Nano does. And then it's a lot easier to integrate into larger systems. So because of how small it is and because of the fact that it has the pins that you can see at the top, it can be used to connect with like different sensors and stuff like that. And it's a lot more portable. And as you can see, compared to the size of a Toonie and my laptop, it is much, much smaller than the average computer that you see. And so the outcomes of our project were that we demonstrated that small language models deployed on low power devices without cloud support can still achieve excellent summarization performance. We found the best prompting techniques for different situations. So for example, if you're under time pressure, you should use an LLM called OpenChat and then a prompting technique called Zero Shot. If you need explicit reasoning, you can use the Neural Chat LLM and then Chain of Thought. And then if you need richer contextual detail, then you can use Mistral and the self-ask prompt. And for an ablation study, we compared the summarization systems on 1 nano versus our dual setup, and we found that it was significantly faster. And so in the first run, like the first time you load up the dual setup, it saved 40.72 seconds by reducing the time that the Nano S has to wait for the retrieval process to happen, and then 94.23 seconds every single time you run it after that, because now the LLM is also always loaded on the RAM of the Nano S. And our research paper was accepted for the 2025 IEEE AIoT conference in Osaka, Japan this year. So for the future work, one thing that we could work on is having emergency physicians evaluate the summaries that the LLMs produce, having them evaluate the notes that are being fed into the LLMs to begin with, fine-tuning the LLMs, and developing a custom prompting technique tailored to the emergency department and the dual device setup. And these are our key references. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.